Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Hazard Mitigation Planning Board meeting, Wednesday, November 17, 2021. I'd like to everybody to make sure their cell phones on silence or vibrate, and we'll have a call to order with the roll call. I have Steve Walker, Director of Emergency Services, John Dietrich, Director of Public Works and Transportation, Eric Benson with IT representative, Ed Hogan from Metcom, and Bill Hunt from Land Use Growth Management. So we have a quorum in attendance. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from our August 18th, 2021 meeting? Accept the motion or?
I move to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2021 meeting as presented.
Second. Motion, a second by Ed Hogan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion approved. We'll go to old business, tropical storm, Isaias updates. So we've been working very diligently with FEMA on public assistance, which was cost for the county. And I don't have that paper in front of me for some reason.
No.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
So, of course, in the package, we have a breakdown of all the different projects and what we've been paid so far. So far to date, it's been $606,667.99, and there's approximately $1.3 million that's pending upon completion of the projects. Part of the public assistance requirement is that the projects be finished within 1 year of the declaration. The declaration was February 4, 2021, and we have a couple projects that will not be finished by that time. So we'll be requesting the formal process of requesting extension, and we'll do that in December per FEMA's recommendation. So pending completion is the St. Andrews Church landfill, and John Dietrich, you made comment a minute ago, the status of that?
Right. At 11:30 today, MES, who's our contractor on that project, will show Nick Zirkin the bids that they got. As far as we know, were within budget, and that'll be able to be awarded. So MES is actually doing all the work for us on that project. So there isn't another contractor per se involved. That work may have to be postponed until spring, given the amount of work that needs to be done and the fact it's earthwork on a slope. So,
Yeah, and we had already worked out with FEMA tentative cost based on what we knew with the documents from MES.
Right.
Then we have Manor Road and Busy Corner Road, and then Dr. Johnson Road pending completion.
Right. Dr. Johnson still trying to help the FEMA people understand the stormwater management facility that had to be restored there. They just hadn't really seen anything like that before. So Manor and Busy Corner, we got a new contractor because the old one failed, and we're slowly moving along on it.
Yeah, I know Amy Bledsoe, the planner's been online or on phone calls with Donnie and
Right.
Willie and FEMA, and it seems like we're doing a lot of duplications.
Absolutely.
I know they're all diligently working to get that moving forward.
Yeah, appreciate Amy's help on facilitating that, though. Thank you.
Next, we have from John Dietrich, nuisance flooding. And I'm going to put the Dotson House raising project
Yeah,
all together, so.
It's part of that, yeah.
Right.
All right, so nuisance flooding, as if you've got your packages, you'll see the Waterview area and Golden Beach. We've now got a plan. We're probably going to have to do something we've never done before with this particular project. That whole area is so flat that we can't get the water to drain naturally to the open water from the interior, and we're going to have to put in essentially some piping in a pump house that'll pump water into the Patuxent from the HOA beach property. So this will be essentially like a residential septic system, more or less, where the piping from the neighborhood will flow down to this tank. And because that water, because of the fact we can't get the water to flow unless the pipe is lower than the water level in the Patuxent, we have to pump it up. And so that's most likely what we're going to do. So the idea is that we got to do that. We got to keep it as simple and maintenance-free as possible because we're going to have to maintain it. If there's a major flood, high tide and so forth, and the whole thing gets flooded, it'll just shut down and wait till the water goes down. So we're not planning on doing any berms or anything like that. Belvoir and Green Knolls Elementary, we're got a pretty good partnership going with the Board of Education. Don Mills did some analysis, and it looks like building a facility on Green Knolls Elementary that carries water from the adjacent subdivisions away from the Belvoir Road area and out to Chancellor's Run should take care of the majority of the flooding problem at Belvoir. And we've been coordinating with the school just so we can get those facilities in without reducing their outdoor recreation and education area. So far, so good with that one. There's some other pieces, though, we just can't get people to cooperate. We could probably eliminate the Belvoir Road flooding if we can get an easement to go between two houses to run another pipe, but people just won't cooperate, and commissioners are typically not willing to go to condemnation. So Tall Timbers, Dotson House raising, that should have been put down. The house should have been lowered down to its foundation this week. The house mover was stuck in West Virginia trying to move a house, and they finally got that done. So whether they're going to come in on Thanksgiving week is uncertain right now. But the foundation, all the other work's done.
So, interrupt real quick, thought was interesting, I went back and looked, and I talked to Mr. Dotson in 2014, it's when that project originally started, him questioning about the hazard mitigation funds. So it's been a long
It's
long
been a
road.
long haul. Yeah, we certainly aren't anticipating wanting to solicit additional applications because it just eats a huge amount of staff time. The amount that MEMA will put into it typically is not nearly enough, and the owner has to pony up a lot of money, and it just isn't something that works too well, because we typically got to raise the houses pretty far up in the air down here with the coastal flooding issue. So we may, though, of course, I'll be gone at the end of the year, but there probably needs to be something done down at Piney Point Museum, and whether those, because all 4 of the buildings got flooded in the No Name event on the 29th. So it could be the buildings could be flood proofed, quote unquote, rather than raised, but all that's got to be run through. There is a coastal protection project underway that'll help a little bit, but when you get a storm surge like we had on the 29th, ain't gonna do any good. So, it's a interesting problem. And that's the next one on the list there. And we've already pretty well gone through the Isaiah's stormwater piece. I guess that's it, right?
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, we are updating. So all these new locations that show up, we'll be updating the nuisance flooding plan that should, I guess, bolt into your hazard mitigation plan. Okay. So Don Mills will be definitely on that.
Okay. Next up, and is the Silver Jackets, basically, which originated from Tropical Storm Isaias. We had our first meeting, so in our documents and on the board docs for public viewing, I made a mistake and gave the wrong agreement. This was for the Macintosh Run monitor. So when we get back today, I will get that updated, the agreement that shows the Silver Jacket Award and all the different agencies and monies going to those agencies to participate. So my apologies for that just messed up. So we'll make sure we get that put in there so there's an accurate record. But with that, and John was there, Tony Wheatley was there, he's not here today. We had our kickoff meeting on November 10th last week. Amy Bledsoe, Steve Walker, myself, Kevin Wagner from MDE, Jason Stick from the Army Corps of Engineers, Dave from MDE, Joy Hatchett from the Maryland Insurance Administration, Lachelle McKay from Leonardtown, Wes Gould from DNR, Chuck Walker from the USGS, John Dietrich, Donnie Mills from Department of Public Works, Steve Zubrick from the National Weather Service, Megan Granado from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and Jen Sparnberg from Maryland Environmental Service. We're either in person, which most were in person, but we did have a few on the WebEx call. And it was our kickoff meeting to go over the proposed scope of looking at mitigating Macintosh Run flooding, which they are looking at the Macintosh Road, basically from just in on Maypole Road to Brenton Bay, and that flooding, what we can do to mitigate flooding, and then also Town Run flooding. So we went through the whole proposal, all the participants, how they're all going to participate, and again, the document that I'll have resubmitted this afternoon will show all of that. January and February, the U.S. Corps of Army Engineers is going to start doing their field work, which will take about 2 weeks. The Maryland Department of Natural Resources is going to be starting their surveys in March and April. April, May, they'll start doing the modeling, and we have to have a written report. The U.S. Corps of Army Engineers has to have a written report by December of 2022. So the next meeting will be, date and time has not been determined yet, will probably be in either February or the very 1st of March. And they'll be sending out a invite for that. So it's been a long process. There's a lot of good players involved that are bringing things to the table, and expertise, because no one person has expertise of all these different areas. So we are very excited and moving forward. There's a lot of stuff that I've already provided the U.S. Corps of Army Engineers and MDE as far as properties that flooded along McIntosh Run, from Maypole Road up through, including Route 5. And so that process has started. Do you have anything to add, John?
No, I think it's pretty interesting that this has come along at the same time as something else I'll talk about a little bit later in the agenda, because the MDE has finally woke up that there's these high-intensity storms need to be dealt with. The current stormwater regulations are really more for water quality rather than quantity, so more on that later.
All right. Next, we will go into the proposed dates for the quarterly hazard mitigation planning meeting for 2022. The proposed meeting follows the same schedule we have now, which is February 16th, May 18th, August 17th, and November 16th.
I move to approve the 2022 calendar year meeting dates as presented.
I have a second.
I second.
Second by Steve Walker. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The next thing I thought was very interesting, is a document that was put together after the Ellicott City floods and economic resilience. So we attached that as informational as part of the package. And I know Steve Walker has forwarded this document to Chris Gasselmias in our Department of, what is it, Economic
Development.
The Economic Development. Thank you. There's a lot of good information, and as John said, there's a lot of intensity storms, high intensity storms. It's a very good report. So that is also part of our documents to share.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. If you go into Howard County's website, they've really got a good plan for how to minimize the impact on Ellicott City, and it's essentially building upstream detention, retention, whatever. And I have to think that a lot of MDE's movement back to building more large ponds and so forth may have come out because of this particular document. And I thought it was pretty interesting in that Silver Jackets meeting. They were actually talking about maybe rebuilding that beaver pond that blew out at Secretariat, because we're not supposed to be building in-stream ponds. And but I think everybody's kind of waking up that if you can figure out some way to deal with the fish, and there are ways to deal with the fish that, need to be able to move around, that probably we got to start thinking about farm ponds again.
Well, they were very interested when they also learned that that was at basically the head of the McIntosh Run,
Yeah,
and that there's estimates of 11-acre pond that
right,
is no longer there. So
right,
there was even talk of them doing some digital mapping of that pond.
right.
There was a lot of interest in that. Not that that would have stopped the flooding at McIntosh Run for that event, because we had 9 inches of rain in a very short period of time. But looking at all opportunities to minimize that flooding along Maypole Road, access on 243, access, there was people that were in the meeting that didn't realize Route 5 was shut down. Route 5 is one of our major thoroughfares to the hospital, actually the only one through Leonardtown from the north, and in that delay. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, there's, essentially that pond did not have a low flow pipe, because the beavers blocked everything. And and another thing that Donnie Mills has discovered, there are people that make equipment now, and it's kind of like automating. I'm not exactly sure what that you do down at the St. Mary's Lake Dam, but you can automate the drawing down the water when you got a big event coming up. And so having a pond like that pond could just be, more or less the way it was before the beaver dam blew out. But then you could draw it down, when you knew you were going to have this event, and this event was something that we knew about a week before it happened practically. So you could draw the pond down, and then that could capture a lot of gallons of water. So so it's a kind of a brave new world with all that, but it's going to cost money, and it all has to be maintained. So that's the end of my speech.
Yes, so St. Mary's Dam does have drawdown, but it's all manual.
Yeah.
And we do have an emergency plan. As you know, we've been in conversations with the state. And so that's one of the things in that plan is before an event to draw that down. So next on the agenda is advancing stormwater resiliency in Maryland.
Right. So this is that new document from MDE that I talked about. It's an action plan that lays out steps, and of course, a lot of the action is going to have to come from us, because there's a lot of data they want us to put together. So how exactly we're going to do that, I'm not sure, but it's definitely going to have to be thought about, a lot of interaction with them, and but it's a good thing, because what it will do will also help us in updating our stormwater regulations, and could have impact, Bill, on the subdivision regulations and the whole series of things. Definitely will have an impact on the road ordinance too. So, and then how that figures into building more kind of master plan stuff about retention and detention, like Howard County, stay tuned.
Okay, so that ends all of our agenda items. We'll go around to members' time. Do you have anything for State Highway?
No, I think y'all are pretty much up to date with where we're at with, at least definitely McIntosh Run anyway, in the study.
Please come to a microphone.
I'm sorry, yeah. We can hear you, but apparently they can't hear you on line, so.
Then no, I was just saying that I know Gerald and John, you're pretty much aware of where we're at with the McIntosh Run. They kind of talked a little bit about Nelson Run, but really the real problem is McIntosh backing up from the tides. So they're looking into a bunch of different options. I just don't know any definitive answers at this point. I know there was some talk about raising that stretch of road right through there. But again, there's nothing definitive yet, but.
Right, and State Highway was part of that Silver Jacket, so there's a lot of people
Yeah.
locally that's involved, but from the Baltimore main office and
Yeah.
is involved, so,
Yeah, the Highway Hydraulics Division's heavily involved now.
Yes.
So that's good.
okay, thank you. Bill Hunt, do you have anything? He's shaking his head no, so we won't ask him to come up to the microphone. Ed Hogan, Metcom,
No, I don't have anything.
Eric, GIS?
No.
Thank you again for the maps that you provided. I mean, you can call it hazard mitigation, emergency planning, but for the coastal flood event, no-name storm, those maps came very handy in our activation of the EOC, so.
Good, glad to hear.
John Dietrich?
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Benson, for your work on the GIS. We've started, because the commissioners did give us a little bit of design money for the county bridge project. We've got MES out inspecting large county-owned culverts that don't meet the federal criteria of a 20-foot total span, and those are all being mapped, and definitely a good thing. We found one culvert that was basically mostly collapsed down Drayton, and so we'll be working to get that repaired. But I think just being able to build that inventory and have it both visual as well as, data is a very good thing. So definitely thanks for that. And today, maybe right now, we should be getting our new salt barn filled with salt. First load's supposed to be here at 10:30. So that kind of goes along with the hazard mitigation. So it's a good thing. It holds twice as much salt as the old one did. So hopefully we won't depend on SHA if we get in a bind like I think we did. I don't know if we actually had to go get some salt from you last year, but that 3-day storm, that the ice, that everything, we pretty much ran out. So
if you say it's twice the capacity, this one's a 4,200?
yeah, so it's big.
Oh, it's big.
It's a big structure. So the Leonardtown one remains the same, of course, and we're going to do some repair work to that. It's looking pretty shoddy, but that's the news.
Steve?
So the Silver Jackets, I did attend that also. I thought it was very, very encouraging. I think that the team that's been assembled is very competent, very, very self-assured. They had a really good plan of action. They did mention, as you said, raising the road. I think that'll take some time to get there, but I think the timeline, as I recall, was probably going to take just about a year before we get the report back. Knowing how large projects take time, I don't think that's too bad. But again, I felt very encouraged. I thought it was a very good meeting and a very good plan of action, and I'm hopeful that it comes out well. So.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.